Anytime I make a video about the strategy in some map, I'll get at least one or two comments that go, "Oh, strategy? I just used W and then jerked off to Hoarder's ass for 2 hours." Those people are very wise. I should have done the same thing. Instead, I played this stupid map for almost an entire day, so we have this video. Yay! I'm not sure if I want to even talk about the run or complain about the boss more. I guess we should get the most important thing out of the way. I always get asked why I don't use Chestnut against elemental damage. There's so much elemental damage. And hey, maybe I'm just a bit mental from old age and I've forgotten, so I decided to use Chestnut and check what happened. The boss has elemental damage, Chestnut removes it, so Contrail takes way less damage. That's great. And do you know what happened with Contrail after that? She died, because she was being healed by Chestnut. Always remember, Chestnut is not a real medic. Okay, Chestnut out of the way. Let's quickly talk about the run. Contrail is basically the only DPS here. We can't use her skill anymore for the entire first phase, so she's just going to beat the boss to death with her bare hands. Pure Stream can keep her alive indefinitely by healing after the elemental procs. There's a very similar run on CN that used Gavio, but because the boss also has a stun, and I found dealing with that stun really fucking annoying, I switched to Pure Stream. Now the boss can't move after he stuns Contrail. The stupid rabbit thing takes 7 tentacles to kill. Luckily for me, there are only two of them. Okay, that's the gist of the first phase. The rest of it is just setting up the crystals. When the boss dies, it spawns a bunch of crystals and you have to kill them all, otherwise it resets the first phase. Now, there is a bug I noticed a few times, where it can just reset the phase with 0 crystals on the ground. I'm not sure if it just spawns a crystal at the last possible frame or what, but I've had it happen a few times in various positions. I'm too lazy to dig through my hours of footage to find it, but it definitely does happen. Okay, Deep Cover will now lower the crystal health. We use some damaged crystals to block the tiles, Contrail herself, the map around us, and we will use a tentacle to make sure the boss only has a few crystals that can revive him when he actually dies.
Wow, they're really fun. Did that splash of cool water wake you up?
Now here's my problem with this boss. He has 3 skills that are all tied to his basic attack. He has the stun skill, the fire breath, and the flight in his phase 2. Now which one of those skills he's going to use is very unpredictable, because they are all tied to his basic attack. And there is no priority to use one skill over the other if they're both ready or anything like that. So the slightest difference in timing will completely change what order the boss uses his skills on and where they go. You can see that because they also have different cooldowns, sometimes the stun gets shifted around. And this is eventually going to result in the flame being cast on Pure Stream instead of Contrail, which is no problem at all, but it's just a demonstration of the weird behavior this boss has. This is annoying when you're trying to do anything precise. If you're just nuking the boss with a full team, that's fine. But if you don't have the opportunity to do that and need to actually play around the boss's skills, the boss can quickly become incredibly inconsistent, especially if you're trying different things. Because if he uses one of his attacks 1 second later or something, it's going to completely shift his entire setup. The worst of this is the flight skill, because the way it works is that the flight requires some target to be in the fire. So if his timing gets shifted on the fire, he can just forget to use his flight skill at all, because it ends up being off cooldown but there not being anything in the fire. It's super annoying.
A fight? All right.
The reason I actually run Pure Stream comes up in the second phase. Basically, the dragon starts flying because he's an asshole, and we have to block him on Contrail, but he also has a stun. So he can just stun Contrail in the air and move away, unless you're very precise with the tiles. I couldn't really do it. I'm not sure if it's RNG or just takes more precision than I could do. but ultimately I got tired of it and just used Pure Stream to cancel out the stun.
Wow, they're really fighting.
And finally the boss is dead. The tentacle blocks one of the crystals, the other crystals and the terrain block the others, so he only has 3. For some reason he didn't spawn any, even though he had an open tile. I have no idea how that works. He's supposed to, but he just decided not to. It's very weird. And finally phase 2. I wait around a bit to bait out the fire attack on the tentacle, because it gives him damage reduction. And then Contrail can DPS the boss and the rabbit a little bit. She also kill everything else, it's Contrail after all. The rabbit gets off to the tentacles, and because the skill was really delayed, they will also survive the fire breath. You notice Contrail just barely landed in time to proc it. If she lands 1 second later, there will be no flight, because she won't be in the fire anymore.
Brace yourselves.
This is what I mean by the boss skills being so inconsistent. Because the fire that's on the ground disappears, if the flight doesn't line up on it, and you want to use it to stall the boss or something, the boss can just do something completely different. It's not RNG per se, it's just down to timings. But actually whabbing this out was so annoying. It was an endless series of trial and error until I got the right timings for this to work.
Just cleaning work is my specialty.
Phase 2 is, after the boss crosses through the blue stairs, is much more controlled, because we force him to use one skill at a distance, since it has infinite range, and then we can bait out the fire, which is currently on cooldown because we used it earlier. It shouldn't be on cooldown for the record, because the cooldown doesn't last that fucking long, but this boss makes no fucking sense, so let's not worry about it. And just pretend it's some skill thing we're doing and not stupid buggery. The tentacle next to Contrail blocks the crystal from spawning, because the crystals block vision. Now the flame would be very scary, but Contrail is in the air, so it can't hurt her. Just so you can see what I mean. Okay, so one flame ends and then he instantly casts another. But he had a massive window where there was no flame. See what I mean when I say this boss makes no sense? Why didn't he just cast the flame earlier? Why could he do 4 attacks before casting the flame? He does this consistently, so it's not RNG, there's some code behind it. But trying to actually understand how it works is beyond me. It feels so random. I just learned this pattern and used it to kill him. But I don't get how this boss works at all.
The 2 long white plumes up in the sky? Yeah, those are mine.